is what you got for me.
Durag Diaries, yo people, welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to Let's Talk Tottenham. I have a very, very special guest today making his debut on the channel. Man like Sean from Spurs Talk Show. How are you doing, bro?
I'm good. I'm good, Jords, man. This is my debut on the show, is it? Or have I been here before? I think it's my debut, right?
Debut on the show.
No, it's good to be back, man. It's good to see you. We've got a lot to talk about, no doubt, bro. There's a hell of a lot maybe percolating in the world of Tottenham. But maybe there's not. You know, there's every minute there's a new update. Apparently, Savino's now injured. Where did that come from? Is that like a sly little kind of sideshow, or is that a reason to justify?
Pep is just like, what do you expect with Spurs? It's never an easy transfer. There's always a roller coaster, and Pep is bringing us right along that roller coaster with the news he's just dropped in his press conference. So yeah, but look, people, make sure you are supporting the channel, supporting Sean. His link is in the title of the video, but also in the description, so you can go and subscribe to Sean, who's well on his way past 30 now into the bigger echelon, the higher echelons of YouTube now. He's approaching. But he is back. He is consistent. So make sure you guys are supporting Sean over there, as well as, you know, I know he's doing stuff on the Football Inc. now with Johnny and the Spurs 5 with the great Spurs 5. So make sure you guys are supporting all the channels over there. But look, I don't think there's anywhere where we can start away from this Savio business. Pep mind games. I don't even know what to make of it. What are you thinking of it, Sean, at the moment?
To be honest, mate, I literally just finished a live and I hadn't seen it. And then someone just Johnny phoned me up afterwards and it's like, you know, what time are we doing our thing later on? And I said, oh, you know, whenever. And he said, oh, you know, what do you make of this Savio injured thing? And I said, oh, what do you mean? And he said, oh, apparently Pep's just said he's injured in the press. I said, is there any context to it? He said he hadn't seen it. Unless you've seen it, I haven't had a chance to look. But I would imagine that it just explains his absence from the first team, right? More so than that's why he's not going to join Tottenham, because like Tottenham are very determined to get this guy. Like, we're dropping numbers here, mate, that are just obscene. Like, normally I'm someone that kind of that thinks about the numbers a little bit, you know. Like, I guess you know, if you watch my stuff, that I come from that.
Some people call you a Levy sympathizer. Some people do, not me, but some.
A lot of people do. No, I mean, to be entirely honest, I am a Levy sympathizer. I do think he's a good chairman. I do think he's a very good chairman. I get portrayed as someone that defends him at all costs. It's not. I just defend logic. And when I hear people that are massively Levy out, going on there, everything that is wrong with the football club is Levy, but nothing that's good is because of him. All that stuff, I just call that shit out because she's my French. I just get bored of the polarization. But with regards to the numbers, like I'm someone that comes with a background from finance, so I am looking at these things going, well, how do you justify the numbers that are being paid? Like, I called out Sesko, right? I said, like, I don't think you can justify 85 million euros for Sesko. Like, I think that he's a good player, but I think that Man United have overpaid for him. And generally speaking, I would sit there and probably say, if Tottenham end up paying something like 75 million euros, something like that for Savio, I'd say, if it wasn't Tottenham, if it was someone else, I'd say you're overpaying for him. But right now, I think that Tottenham are in this weird world where it's like, you know, like if you've got a dog and that your dog gets hurt and it's a Wednesday lunchtime, you can get an appointment for a few £100, right? But if it happens on a late, if the dog gets run over on a Sunday night at midnight, you're paying thousands to get that appointment because emergency solutions equals that sort of vibe, right? And I feel like Tottenham right now are sort of walking into the end of the window. There's a lot of things that need to happen. And so I don't mind us paying emergency money because I really do rate the guy. So I'm getting off the topic a little bit. I apologize. But like, in terms of like, what's the, that's my kind of take on the player, but what's the vibe with the whole injury thing? I think the injury thing is more just around like explaining his absence rather than saying, he's going to go to Tottenham. If he's injured, he's injured. But we signed.
He pretty much said as a whole. What he said is Savio is injured from Palermo. He'll be out for a few weeks, And then he went on further to comment on his potential move to Spurs, saying, but the only thing he's concerned about today is that Savio will be with us till the end of the season. Sort of new normal manager stuff, saying he's my player. And then he went on to say he's extraordinary, but at the end of the day, it's always the desire of the player that prevails above everything. And then after there has to be an agreement with the club. If you don't take an agreement, the player will be here. So he pretty much responded into a question that was asked about the move from him coming to Spurs. Or did I freeze? I'm still here, right?
You're still here.
I just went all black screen for a second. Yeah, so he was just on. They asked about him potentially moving to Spurs, and he just clarified why he's been absent with the team, because obviously there's been some pictures going out across Twitter and so on that he's not training, he's in the gym and so on. So apparently he's injured. But no, for me, I'm very much the same as you. Like, I do like to look into the financials. I've got to a point though when you're following so much transfers, you're just like, damn, just overpay for the player. Just overpay for a top player. But when you look at the deal, you look at the type of player. This just screams Tottenham, you know. Like if there's any player we're gonna overpay and we're gonna go in and potentially put a record fee out, it's a young player, someone that's 21, someone who has a lot of upsell. When you talk about in a potential couple of years when he may want to move on or may potentially get a bigger move to the likes of Real Madrid or Barcelona, Spurs are looking at that, side of it where there will be a resale value. When you talk about the Eze deal now, which I think we'll get into a bit later, I think there's a bit more complications on that side of thing because he's at 27 rather than 21. So Spurs are taking that into consideration with the amortization of the deal when he's gets to 30 years old. How much is he going to be worth? Probably half of the money you invested in. With Savio in 3 or 4 years, that price is always going up, especially with inflation and seeing how the market's been moving. So this looks like
Jords. Do you know what? Just on that, right? I got to I agree with you principally, but there's this narrative that I've been saying it for a long time. Like City were the first people that moved into the youth model. Well, they were 3 years ahead of us, 2 years ahead of, or 1 year ahead of Chelsea. We were the third kids on the block to do that thing where we're just fishing after the youth. Now everybody's doing it. Right, but if you run with the logic on it for a second, which is I think is quite important here. If everybody is saying the same notion now that no one wants to pay top money for a 27-year-old because there's no sell-on value, right? Like when you get to 31, you're the end of your contract. The geezer's walking into his final contract. He might get a decent contract, but no one's paying top money because there's no sell-on value for a 31-year-old. Therefore, there's no point in paying over the price for a 27-year-old. Fair enough. If everybody is moving on that rationale, that logic, if everybody's moving towards 21, 22, 18, 19-year-olds, more so, understandably more so for 18-year-olds, but at 21, 22, same difference, right? Most of these people haven't proven their worth yet. But if everybody's fishing in the same pond, then you get bidding wars. And then you get problems where you're overpaying for 18, 19, 20, 21-year-olds. You're basically paying for perfection on the presumption that they're going to become the player that they're touted to be when they're a kid. And 7 out of 10 of these guys don't make it. Yeah. Look at Evan Ferguson, right? Look at Tyler Dibbling. Tyler Dibbling 6 months ago, £100 million. Now he's half that. Evan Ferguson 2 years ago, £100 million. He went to Roma. What did he go for? Like nothing, basically, like a fraction of that money, right? Like there's so much of this shit. But if everybody now is fishing in that pond of youth, then you're going to get like more demand for less supply. Anyone will do, as long as you're good and you've got a good scout report about you and you're 18, as long as your date of birth says 2004 or more recent, then we'll pay 3 times your money. The problem with that logic, even if it's sound, if the logic is true, then you sign those guys on a 5-year contract. By the time they get to 26 years, 27 years old, they then fall into the same bucket, right? That you're currently avoiding because there's no point in those other teams paying for that guy from you that you are not currently willing to pay from other clubs. So the logic doesn't logic.
It's very backwards. It is. I feel like the transfer market as a whole has gone very backwards because, like you say, that we aren't seeing a lot of clubs pick up 27-year-olds, 28-year-olds, proven players. We've seen the likes of Gyökeres, who quite literally is one of the best goal scorers in world football, go for a lower fee than Sesko, who has done nowhere near what Gyökeres has done. And Arsenal was leaning towards more that deal at one point. Only when the financials worked out, it was like, okay, let's come back over here. So there is sort of a strange shift in football to go to those younger players. And I don't know if it's due to there is a sort of sense that the primes of footballers has started to become a bit younger, especially when you're talking about these winger positions, these players that start early. I feel like when you've got a lot of these 17, 18-year-olds playing, their body's breaking down quicker. So what we used to see guys at 29, 30, and now is 27, 28, you're starting to see players break down. The likes of Rashford's, the likes of Sterling's, when you've been playing so long, their bodies just can't keep up with the new generation. So I think that does have a part to play in. But you are right. Ultimately, when you're going in for a player like Eze, he's 27. He's you could say he's in his prime of his career at this point. You're not really going to get much better. He's going to come in.
Traditionally, the prime was 27. Now, apparently, it's 23. Right?
Yeah, it's strange because I have this conversation all the time. Like, what is a player's prime? And I feel like you can say it's different for different positions, but it does seem like right now, when you're looking at attacking players, teams look for that sweet spot between 23, 26. Like that's the prime. And that's even when you look at all the players we tried to sign. Morgan Gibbs-White was of an older profile, but still only 25. I think he was when we're looking at signing him. So I think Eze is maybe just above the profile that Spurs are looking for, but at the same time, you've got to go out there and get proven players. You've got to go out there and add experience. We see what Paulinho, just in a short time, he looked poor in that Bayern game, but in PSG, you see a complete difference, that maturity, that experience that he brings to the squad. But with Savio, just keeping it on him for a second, with the player, with the signing. No, so if you gotta go do something, it's fine.
No, sorry. Just saying something.
No, it's all good. So with Savio, I just wanted to bring it back. Would he be one of your top options, or you find that Spurs potentially could move on to other players? Because we've seen links to the likes of, I think, Alacuche, other wingers. I've seen a few other winger links, but it seems like we really want to get this deal done. Thomas Frank really favors him. Do you think we should have to push for this deal because it's Thomas Frank's player?
Oh, sorry, is this Savio or Akalusha? Savio. Yeah, look, Savio for me is an absolute baller, mate. I think Savio is someone that I look at. I think there's two ways that clubs. I don't think that football clubs should listen to their fans, because I don't think the fans know what they want. Right? They'll move their goalposts every chance they can. The wind changes direction, they are moving their opinion. And it's a very volatile thing. So I don't think that the clubs and the owners and the decision makers should ever listen to the fan base. But I think as a fan, you should look at the reaction to football fans that don't follow your club, to see how they react to the news around a potential transfer towards you. And when Savio to Tottenham stories dropped, you had Arsenal fans saying, "What the hell? Like, why are we? Why aren't we? Why did we go? What's going on there? Why did we get Madueke? Why couldn't we get him? Right? You had Chelsea fans going, forget Xavi Simons, forget Garnacho. Let's go and get Savio. Right? We can't let Tottenham get him. You had Man City fans saying, why are we more interested in letting Oscar Bob develop than Savio, right? Than Savio? And to me, like, I'm not a football decision maker, so like I don't work in that realm of like caring less what the fans think. But when you have 3 or 4 competitive fan base that are all panicked by the fact that Tottenham are advancing and that Tottenham are breaking the mold and sitting there going 50 million rejected, 60 million rejected, 70 million rejected. We are punching these numbers up quick, right? If you listen to Simon Jordan when he was talking about what Tottenham did, was it for Wayne Routledge? I forget who the player was that he had that we went after, and he was saying that every 5 minutes, Daniel Levy was coming back with an extra 50 grand, right? And it ended up going, it was a deadline day deal, and it ended up going to some tribunal. I know the numbers were different then, but we've come back, we were in 3 times in the space of like 72 hours, and we've moved our number essentially 40% from 50 million to 70 million. We're still not there yet, but apparently it's all, there's like willingness on all sides.
Everyone's confident that it's progressing.
Everyone's confident it's going to happen. And you look at the fan bases of all of the competitors and the club that's losing him, and every fan base is saying, basically universally, not sure I'm happy about that. And then you got Thomas Frank, by the way, who just the other week, a few days ago, turned around and said, "Look, he was on a rooftop bar in Seoul in Korea, did the interview, and he said, in a nutshell, he said, look, we are in the market, but we're not just going to sign anybody." And for what it's worth, I'm not going to say that Brentford's model was better than Tottenham's, but it was very, very good, which I perceive to mean.
Was this the comments about Johan Langer in it? And people, I feel like it was taken out of context in some type of way, because it was texted rather than there wasn't a video of him saying it. They wrote it out in a text.
Yeah, it was in the Athletic.
Like the way that he speaks, and he's foreign essentially, so his English isn't the cleanest. I think it come out in a way that when you read it, it sounded horrible, but. I don't think.
Listen, I didn't hear the audio version, so you might be right. But like when you sort of bake in the various kind of like iterations there to land on the argument of whether or not Savino's the right guy, whether Tottenham really want him, I think you have to go and pay it, whatever it is. Like whatever to a degree. And as I said, like in my previous answer, I'm thinking, well, I criticized Man United thinking like Sesko ain't worth 85 million. He hasn't done anything. Savino's younger, hasn't really done that much either. His output's not great, even though I think if you actually look behind the surface, you'll see that he's usually the guy before the guy who gets the assist or the goal at City. He did do pretty well at Girona. But when you look at the fact that the Romano news about Savio was, this is Thomas Frank's choice. This is what he wants. I kind of put all that stuff and all the other noise around, like, our systems at Brentford were like polished and efficient, and everyone knew their role. And we're not there yet at Tottenham because we're 7 weeks in rather than 7 years in. But in a nutshell, I kind of feel like Thomas Frank is kind of gone. Johan Lang he's not on my page, right? And like Johan Lang. Maybe saying, do you want this guy? Do you want that guy? Do you want that guy? And he's like, no. And eventually someone's gone, who do you want? He's gone, Savio. And then Levy or Vinay or whoever it is that's gone, all right, if that's what you want, if that's who you really want, then we'll go and get it done. And they picked up the phone and spoken to a club who doesn't have a good relationship with Tottenham because of Pep's he's always criticising Levy for the 115 charges, for the Harry Kane thing. Like Pep's got a bee in his bonnet about Levy, and yet Levy or Vinay or the intermediaries, whoever it is, have picked up the phone and said, we'd like to buy Savio. And they got, no, not interested. Well, how about, we're serious, 60 million, whatever. Okay, well, we can have a conversation. And I feel like, to answer your question, Thomas Frank has said, he's my guy. He's the guy that I want on my left. Because Matisse Tell's not ready and Odebear's not ready and yada, yada, yada. And so I think that Tottenham are going to make it happen. Whether or not Manchester City end up wasting our time, whether or not we end up overpaying, I think given that it's Thomas Frank's first big signing, I think you have to kind of shake hands with the reality of the environment and go, I'll get on board the overpayment. I do think Savino's a baller, and I hope he comes to Tottenham.
Yeah, no, very well said there. Savio, top baller. I know some people allude to his 1-goal season last year, where he also had 8 assists, but like you said there, he was also playing out of position, played on the right-hand side for the whole season after playing no games on the right-hand side for Girona at all. So when you actually look into it a bit closer,
his actions that led to things that are like 1 or 2 steps so high, like 95th percentile for most.
Look at the shot creating actions. Yeah, I've looked at the FB rough, the take-ons, all of those numbers. Just are all good. So I can't see why it wouldn't work out. And to be fair, just watching him, his delivery is class. Like from that left-hand side, if you get him on that left foot delivering the ball into Solanke, this gives Solanke a lot more goals. A player who a lot of us have looked at and said he needs someone to create for him. But bringing it into Eze, obviously another player that we have looked at, Glasner. We're getting a lot, because I suppose it's pre-match press conferences. We're getting a lot of news from direct words from the managers. He said Eze is expected. He's been training all week. He's with the team, and he's expected to play on Sunday. Now, again, I don't think there's anything said there that you wouldn't expect a manager to say about one of his players. But is there anything that we can read into that? We know his release clause expires tonight. We know from all of the Spurs news, Alistair Gold actually come out today to say that we're looking to tie up a deal for both of these players in the day ahead. Is there anything that we can take from that, from what Glasner said regarding him being in the squad, or is it just like, it's normal business, man? This is what
I do. Man, I've got a feeling that one's going to get done as well. I don't know which one's closer. I'd imagine that there's probably more willingness with Man City because we're getting towards bigger realms of numbers, and that City are probably going to use us as the bill payer for their guy, for Rodrigo.
Yeah.
Right. If we can get Savio, they'll get Rodrigo. But there's a lot of dominoes, right? So, like, if you listen to the Arsenal ITKs, they're saying, well, Arsenal will come back in for Eze, but they want to know first and foremost whether their first target, which is Rodrigo, is going to go to them. So like Tottenham, it's like there's a couple of plates spinning here at the same time, and there's probably only one hand that can handle both. And so, like, if Tottenham need to get the money to Man City to the right number to get Savio, so that they can then go and get Rodrigo done, then do they have enough time and also resources at the same time to not get priced out of Eze? Because it might be that signing Savio and allowing Man City then to pick up the phone to Real Madrid and say, we'll take Rodrigo, might be the trigger that forces Arsenal to go to Eze. So it'll be very interesting to see whether or not like Tottenham can get both deals done while sort of juggling the various like balls in the air there, because the second player that we want is only
the trigger
possibly, there's a trade-off. You know what I mean?
Like, we all know, we've always said, I feel like in this window, everyone's waiting for that one deal that starts to trigger all the other deals and other teams that just start to action. This could be one of those, because I think Man City have been a bit quiet in the window. They've been a bit quiet. They've done their business before the Club World Cup, but then up until now, there hasn't been much happening. We've been seeing the murmurs with Donnarumma and this stuff, but I think they're waiting potentially to sell a couple players. We see McAtee just confirmed out. I think they need to sell a couple players, not even just for the money. We know City's never harsh for money, but, balance the books a bit before going back out there and signing another big few players. And I don't doubt that they go in for a player like Rodrigo. But like you said there, the impact that it could have on the deal for us and Eze is huge. Because
don't forget, there's another domino, right? Which is Eze. Parish is a nightmare to deal with. He's not going to want to let go of Eze to either Tottenham or Arsenal, until they get their guy in, who looks like it's going to be Harvey Elliott, right? Okay. And Harvey Elliott is coming from Liverpool, and Liverpool are also interested in Rodrigo. So, like the Rodrigo story is massive in 3 or 4 different clubs' eventual aims to get these players in. You have to play joined up thinking here. I think someone just said it. I think Jack said it in the chat there. He's saying we should go for Eze first, so that we don't miss out on Eze, because us getting Savio ends up triggering Arsenal to get Eze. But at the same time, if we can't get Eze until Liverpool sell Harvey Elliott, then Harvey Elliott might end up being the trigger for Rodrigo to Liverpool, which ends up screwing the pooch for both Arsenal and Man City. And then we don't get Savio either way. It's a really weird kind of like environment where there's 5 clubs fighting over 2 players or 3 players. And there's going to be 2 people there that are disappointed.
They're going to be hurt. Someone's going to be hurt. We just have to hope it's not us. I'm just hoping Spurs go out there. Spurs do the thing. It's like, do you know what? Look, I don't care about all that other stuff going on. We got 68 million for you. Wrap that up. Look, Parish, let's just get this deal done. Because obviously, yesterday, the reports were coming out that a bid did go in, 58 million plus 7 in add-ons. But the reports were suggesting that the Spurs favoured Tottenham, and the terms of payment favored Tottenham, and that there's probably some more work to do on that first bid. And we know Spurs, the first bid never gets accepted anyway. This is Daniel Levy, just like you spoke about earlier. He works his way up. He's always testing the waters and trying to be a bit cheeky. And to be fair, I know a lot of people and this is what the problem is where I have, is I don't really sit on I'm not mad Levy out. I'm like, yeah, Levy out, but I don't really care that much. And I'm not onto people that are Levy in, because you get the people that say, just pay the money. But then you get the people that complain when we overpay for like a Richarlison or something, and say, why are you overpaying for this player? And it's like, well, he just paid the money in that deal. So I've got to a point, I'm like, do you know what? Yeah. I just want my club to show ambition. If I'm going to overplay for crap players, cool. If I'm going to overplay for good players, cool. Just be happy when the club is doing business the right way. If we eventually get Eze in for lower than his release clause, we've won the deal. We have won the deal. Daniel Levy's won the transfer. So you've got to look at it like that. Now, it has dragged on. It's obviously missed the most important game of our season in the Super Cup. And I just want to bring that to you, because obviously we've not caught up since then. What were your thoughts on the game? Did you? I don't think you see it as a Spursy performance, because I think, like me, you probably take a lot of positives from it. But what were your takeaways from that Super Cup?
Yeah, I thought we did really well. I think the excuses as to why people want to downplay us people that are not Tottenham fans say, "Oh, you were playing against PSG. You only had 6 days to practice." Well, we might have practiced it, but we hadn't shown any demonstration of a back three in any preseason game.
Yeah.
We haven't played back three football in 3 years since Conte, right? So, to do that, I think that kind of levels out that kind of. There's at least some context there that if you're gonna give PSG some wiggle room for their underperformance versus us, then I think you should give us some wiggle room for the fact that we were experimenting in a competitive game. I think that generally speaking, I think that we were worthy of the trophy had it gone that way. Look, at the end of the day, I think PSG have got a team. If you were to do a combined 11 between PSG and Tottenham, then PSG get in 11 players, maybe 10. You might be able to make the argument that Romero or one of our defenders gets in ahead of theirs. But generally speaking, we like a combined 11. They outclassed us in every part of their team, every part of their squad. I think that the team did really well. I think they look organised. I think they look disciplined. I think they look like they're enjoying the structure of having roles to play. And I think that for the most part, the first 11 stuck to it and did a really good job. I thought there was some standout performances from Pape Sarr. I think Richarlison put in the best shift I've ever seen in a Tottenham shirt. And I'm not someone that rates Richarlison whatsoever. I thought Kudus looked incredible. Kudus reminded me with his ability to be their outlet. Harry Kane used to go back to Conte days. Harry Kane used to be the guy that got hate from all the rival fan base for his ability to draw a foul from backing into players and letting them kind of climb over him.
Yeah.
He just wasn't doing that. He was just backing in a bit further and then controlling the ball on his chest, bringing it down, turning and running and being a mischief. And I think that he was sensational. Jed Spence, I would make the argument that Jed Spence needs bigger shorts, bro, because he's got like 4 or 5 top world-class wingers that have been in his pocket for a long time. He's pocketed in his time Salah, Saka, Desiree Doué, Cratch. The list goes on, right? The guy is a phenomenal left back defensively because he has that very, very specific skill of being able to know exactly the margins of having to show the guy who wants to drift in onto his stronger left foot just enough to make him want to do it, but not so much that he's going to take you on to the on the weak side. And when they do cut inside, he's a master at kind of cutting that stuff out. I thought there was plenty of brilliant performances in that squad. I think that the weaknesses where we lost the game was our substitutions. When we brought the 3-4 players on that we did, we gave up all of our midfield strength. I think we won the midfield battle for the first 80 minutes. We gave that up with our subs. I think that we gave up our outlets. Solanke's not match fit and as much as I want to back the guy. And by the way, I got like absolute love for the human being. Yeah. I can't believe the outrage, the scapegoating and the racism, all that, like absolutely abhorrent. Disgusting. But just like as a side gig, like the geezer, people that want to like scapegoat him, he didn't lose that game for us. He didn't, right? Just because he missed a pen. Van de Ven missed a pen. Vicario dived the wrong way and telegraphed his move. All the pens, right? Or 4 of the 5. Like, there's loads of ways that you can, if you really want to throw like mud, shouldn't be just at him. He didn't have a great performance, and that's fair enough. But a lot of people have made their mind up on him already, and it's ridiculous. The kid's 20 years old, and he had the stones to step up and take a penalty, which a lot of people didn't. But I think that the ultimate thing for me, if we want to criticize, and I don't really want to spend too much time criticizing because I think we were up against the best in the world, was our defense was too deep. And I think that that's going to become a problem. I think that if you sit there and you have this bank of 5 that happens to be on the 6-yard box, rather than being closer to the penalty spot, then what's going to be a very easy template to unravel. Like Tottenham under Ange had a template. You win the ball back and you pop it down the channels and we're screwed, right? Under Thomas Frank, I'm a little bit worried that we defend too deep. And Bayern Munich figured it out very quickly. Paris Saint-Germain figured it out in the last 10 minutes. If you get to the byline, just pull it back to the D on the penalty, the D of the penalty area, and there's going to be space there because you've got like 8 or 9 players in Tottenham that are sat close to the goalkeeper, and it's problematic. So I got full props to Thomas Frank for how he set up and how well it went for the most part, but I think there also has to be some lessons around defensive
the way that we set up and sort of being overly defensive. Yeah, he did point it out in the Arsenal game, I believe it was the Arsenal game when he first said that he didn't like how defensively we got in that second half, and it seems like it's it's something our players have just got used to, just sort of like a default setting. I know the back end of Ange, it was like we weren't good enough to attack, so let's just get in and just defend our lead. We've done that in Eze Comments, we've done that at Bodo Glimt, we've done it in the final. And although I don't mind, I'm all here for stinking out a game when you're winning. You've got to actually see that game out and have the result at the back end of it. Otherwise, it does look like a poor performance as a whole, especially if you're doing that across 90 minutes. But no, you pointed out some great things there. The individual performances, I think you spot on. Sarr, Spence, Kudus done so well to hold up the ball. Richarlison, a player who, just like you, I'm not all for Richarlison. I'll quite happily move on from Richarlison this season. But again, at the same time, he did have a really good performance.
Yeah, credit where it's due, right?
Yeah,
I'm not someone that kind of attaches myself to my opinions. So like I'm happy to sit there and say, you know what, I've given him a hard time, but actually fair's fair. A lot of people go like, I've made my mind up on Levy, I've made my mind up on Tell, I've made my mind up on Johnson, I've made whatever. And then if they do something well, they're in the mud because they can't acknowledge it. And then the second that something even remotely bad comes on in the second wave, I told you. That's not me. Like Richarlison, well done, bro. Like you absolutely smashed it. And I can't wait to see more from you if you can do that again.
That's the way I see it. I'm like, we're Spurs fans. I want all Spurs players to do good. So if a Spurs player proves me wrong, like I gave Maddison quite a lot of stick. Going into the season, all I wanted to do is just see Maddison flourish. Maddison, prove me wrong. Prove me that you're way better than what I've said. That's what I want. I just want him to be good. And unfortunately, he got injured. But again, with all the players that we do have that get stick, I just want them to turn up. And Tell being that one, I think a lot of people have writ off. 20 years old. He's had so many top players, the likes of Thierry Henry, who is his manager for the front under 21s, giving him so much plaudits. Think that he's such a good player. And there's no reason why these guys have just done it. Like, he is a good player. When you watch him for France under 21s, you can see the quality there, the link up with Odebert. But I think it's just, like I say, being a scapegoat, being a young kid, for him to step up and take the penalty, and you got to give him the plaudits for it. We saw all those years ago when it happened to Rashford and Saka, and you see the player that Saka's become since then. Saka's become one of the world's best wingers after missing the penalty.
So you can't make one,
up after that, man.
Look at some of the players that Thomas Frank inherited or brought in. Look at Ivan Toney, right? Where did he come from? Was it Colchester or
one of those really like League One?
Peterborough, was it? Peterborough, I think. He was absolutely horrendous as a kid. Became one of the best strikers in the Prem.
Yeah.
You look at Mbeumo wasn't spectacular when he first joined. Right. So I think Matisse Tell has things that you can't teach, which is like the inbuilt desire to work hard, inbuilt sort of confidence, all those sorts of things. You can't teach that. You might lose that if you're the victim of unnecessary venom from fan bases that don't see the bigger picture. But under Thomas Frank, he can be matured into a top player. I've got all the patience in the world for him, and all the love in the world for him, because what he went through on Wednesday night was outrageous, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I've said it a few times, but I can only say it a few more times again whenever I go live. Like, I've been asking the communities, just go out there, send them a good message. Let's drown out all the bad messages, all the abuse he gets. Just go out there and send it in the comments. Tell we're looking forward to seeing you this season. Just send him some message of support to let him know there are a lot of Spurs fans out there that are supporting him and want the best of him. Because, yeah, man, 20 years old, he's honestly still a kid, and all the abuse he got, it's really not nice. But big up to Cat Fun. Funniest name I've got in these chats.
Big up, Catty boy.
Yeah, watch the Pep vid. He looks so awkward when asked about Savio and late to mention the injury. Not sure I believe him. This wouldn't be the first time Pep has done mind games on players, and especially when it comes to players leaving, he is quite keen to get rid of players that don't want to be there. So when he did say whether the player wants to leave, it comes to the clubs getting an agreement. I think he's probably well aware that Savio may be on his way out and not too happy about it. But you did point out something there regarding our defensive, how defensive we can get, and going really defensive with the Thomas Frank system. Are you concerned that we may play that way too often this season? Or do you think that it's a case of, because of the lack of attacking quality we had, lacking that proven experience, that he's just sort of forced to play that way at times?
No, I don't mind the back three. I was really happy to see it, if I'm honest. I was just surprised because we haven't seen it. We didn't see it at Wickham, Reading or Luton. And I was at two of those games. And I was a little bit underwhelmed by what we saw in those games. We didn't see it against Arsenal or Newcastle. So to see it being, I guess, experimented with in a Super Cup final, I think was really brave, and I think that the players clearly adjusted and adapted and went after it. What just super quick. Like, I think people that sit there and moan about the way that the game finished and like the substitutions, for example, I think that they might be mistaking a little bit the reality of the fact that most finals that people participate in, apart from the Carabao Cup, they happen at the end of the season when there's nothing after that game. And so it's one of those like leave nothing behind, leave everything on the field. We're at the start of the season. And so if people wanted Polinia to stay on the pitch for 90 minutes when the guy's only played about 90 minutes in the last 12 months of football or something silly like that, or whatever it is, but like he's not played a lot. If he gets injured and pulls a thigh muscle or a hammy or something in the last few minutes of that game, even if we win, people are then going to moan about the fact that we're back to square one with our Monster Six absence. So Thomas Frank had to be kind of conscientious of those considerations. Same with Richarlison, same with Kudos, he had muscle cramp. And so like the tactical changes, yes, they hurt us. And yes, they were forced by injuries just generally in what we could bring on, but also they were necessary substitutions to make. Yeah. And so you have to kind of bake that in my opinion, into the context of what we saw. But in terms of like the defensive setup, I have no problem with going to a back five. I have no problem with using those two guys as outlets if that's the way we have to go, because I think we had relative success. I'm more than happy to see that sort of thing invoked away from home against maybe the top six, top seven. I'm even okay seeing it at home in a couple of scenarios, and I'm certainly okay seeing it away from home in the Champions League. So I think that you could make the argument that like 15, 16 games next season, that sort of environment, that sort of structural setup is more than appropriate and probably advisable. The only concern I have is how deep we were in the last few minutes. It was too deep. And the people that have got a problem with the way that we finished out the game, like if you're saying that we shouldn't have had, we should have put on Davies and, Junior Byfield or whatever, who's a 16-year-old, by the way. If you're saying that we should have brought on more defensive work to sort of see the game out, that wasn't what cost us. For me, I think that the substitutions, the lack of an outlet was the problem, one problem. And the fact of the matter was that we were sitting on the edge of the 6-yard box rather than being a flat bank of 5 closer to the penalty spot. If you do that, you cut out the risk, and then maybe Yang Lee's or whatever his name is, Yang Lee's his ability to have the space that he did for that shot that went into the corner doesn't happen. So it's not so much about the tactics, Jords. It's more around just how deep we were. That we have to figure out, because I think that will be a template. If we continue to do that, like I know we're not going to do that against Burnley. We'll go back to a 4. But again, when we go away to City on week 2, if we go that deep again, Pep Guardiola will tell Tottenham, will tell his team that there's a chance that Tottenham will sit really deep, and so just pull the ball back to the edge of the D, and then you have the space to let shots.
Let a lot of shots fly, man. And especially watching that Bayern game, we saw like if you have the quality to find the corners, that you score 3 goals on the edge of the area that you can't even stop, and there's nothing you can do about it because you leave all that space in front of you, and sort of you can't even question when they are going to score those goals. But yeah, no, really good points there. I don't see this being the same setup going against the likes of Burnley or some of the other teams in the Premier League, but we will be using this system, this style, especially in the Champions League. And for me, to be honest, looking at it, I was refreshing, because it was like going into this season, my biggest concern was, what do I expect of this team in the biggest games against the biggest sides in the Champions League? Seeing that performance against PSG gives you that confidence to know, okay, we're in good hands. Frank knows how he needs to set up. He's not going to be naive like Ange and just think that we can go toe for toe with the big teams. We've got to adapt. We've got to accept that we are the inferior team sometimes and just go at the game a different way. And the way that we pressed them, I did like in that first half, and especially at the end of the first half, once we got that goal, we didn't let up easy. We had a really high press, all of our players in their half, and still trying to utilize picking up off those loose balls. But having a monster in that midfield like Sarr, I think helps, having somebody cover all that ground. And towards the end of the game, we definitely missed his ability to just sweep up that space, because he was doing such an amazing job in front of Bentancur and Paulinho. But moving it on, because obviously that was a good game, and there was a lot that we can take from that. But we are going into our first game of the season, which is going to be Burnley. But actually, before we go into the Burnley game, we do have some big news, change for Tottenham. They're doing their second or third or fourth. I don't know, not too many, sure how many, but they're doing their protest before the game. I know some people are supporting it, some aren't. But I saw you had some strong feelings about it, Sean, about the protest and, about how they may or may not be taking credit for Donna Cullen's resignation. Just give us your brief thoughts and brief words on the protests, because I know there's some people here that are big supporters of it, but there's some that also are a bit confused by what they're doing.
Yeah, first of all, I always support the right to protest, right? I'm always aboard it. I've always, whether it was Levy out protest before Change for Tottenham came along, every single time there's a protest, I don't subscribe to this Levy out thing. I don't. Yeah. I'm happy. I think Daniel Levy's a good chairman. I can't think of there's only maybe 4 or 5 chairmen in the Premier League that I'd rather have than him. So I'm not on board it, right? But I support the right to protest. And for what it's worth, I've always been to every protest. I think I'm one of 50 or 60 people that have been to every protest that Change for Tottenham have done. And I'll be there tomorrow as well. So there's no I don't say they shouldn't do it or that it's a disgrace or I have a problem with it. Why I struggle to kind of square the circle with is the fact that they seem to take credit for everything that happens, and the logic doesn't logic for me. That's all I ever look for when I'm having a conversation with someone is I don't care where you land, just show me you're working out. And if I can understand the thought process and it makes sense, then I'm like, okay, fair enough. I disagree or I agree, but I can understand where you feel or how you feel or why you feel what you feel. With regards this one, I just feel like every time Change for Tottenham say something, they're taking credit for things that have nothing to do with themselves and saying things like, when Donna Cullen exited the club in June, they gave themselves a pat on the back like it was something down to them. It wasn't. She was due to leave a year earlier, and she was always going to leave in June. So, what you're doing, you lose credibility if you think that everything you're doing. It's almost narcissism, mate. It's all about me. It's all about us. And I find it laughable. And then I could give you 15 other examples of it. But then this latest one, so again. So Billy T is one of the visual kind of visible guys, and I like the guy. I've met him. He's a lovely guy. He's very well spoken. He's calm. He's sophisticated. He's a logical guy. I like him generally, and I don't know if he's in charge of the Twitter handle. I heard him on Last Word on Spurs last night or the night before, so being asked what was the point of the protest, and I was interested to hear the answer.
To be fair, that's what I was. I actually, because people have asked me, I've spoken about the protest, but I said I don't know what the actual message is with this protest. I don't, and I'm interested to know. So
yeah, so he said, because I was like, well, what are you moaning about now, right? Is it still the lack of trophies? Because if so, you got a trophy literally the penultimate game that we played that was competitive. Obviously, Brighton was the last game we played that was competitive, and we that was a shit show. But the game before that, we lifted a trophy, and then we played a game the other night, and we were this close to winning a trophy. So if you're protesting lack of trophies, then it doesn't really make any sense. If you're protesting against the transfer window hasn't even closed yet. I was like, so what's the logic? And then he said, well, the sort of logic is that if we wait until after the window closes, then it will be too late for our impact to have any measure until January. I was like, okay, so therefore you think that a protest is going to play some impact on the decision making of the football club. Okay, if we're working with that, then what happens? So if we don't sign Eze and Savio today, but we sign them on Sunday, are you going to sit there and take credit for the signings because the protests happened just before the signings happened, right? Which I think is ludicrous in its essence. And then just a minute ago, they put out a thing. They put out a Twitter thing saying, the window's a disgrace. There's no ambition, and we noted that there is obviously links that have emerged since we put out our notice that we're going to protest on Monday. So they literally are taking credit for not only Donna Cullen leaving, but they're taking credit for the links that have emerged with regards to Savio and Eze since Monday, even though Eze was linked previously. And if you think that Savio is, I'm just like, it's laughable. But if that's the logic that we're going with, if that's your logic, then if you protest on Saturday and we don't end up signing Eze or
It's
Savio.
going to look even worse, yeah.
Well, but by their own logic, then they should acknowledge that if they think that their protests are responsible for the signings, then if the signings don't happen, then they should acknowledge that their protests are irrelevant. Right? That's the logic. That's their logic. It's not my logic. I think the whole thing.
You're using their logic against them.
Doesn't give a flying F about their protest personally, but like if that's the logic and we don't sign any players, if they're going to take credit for when it does happen, then if it doesn't happen, they should realize that their protests are irrelevant. But like they won't do that. But it's just, for me, it's cherry picking. It's like people that are significantly leaving out. Like I think personally that they have walked themselves into a corner whereby they care so much about Tottenham that they're willing to set up a channel and talk about it all day long. But generally, deep down, I think a lot of those people have they've got themselves into a situation where things that are good news for Tottenham Hotspur are bad news for their movement. And so they somehow work against it. They don't want it to happen. They don't want Tottenham to win a trophy because it means they have to give credit to Levy. They don't want Tottenham to sign a monster because it means that the protests... Because in life, your ego, if you've attached your ego to an opinion and your opinion is attached to a movement, then if the movement looks good and does well, then it has to mean that bad things are happening to the club that you support.
Yeah.
I think it's a fucked up place. Excuse my French. I think it's a terrible place to be, right? I think it's a horrible place to be. But that's the way that the world works, Jords. You know, people are attached to these opinions, and they shouldn't attach themselves to opinions where what they really want is bad things to happen to the football club so that their opinion can look correct.
No, I don't doubt. I think that there is a point in, like you say, the narcissism of potentially of putting out the message that since you've said that there may be a protest, or that I saw the tweet on Monday that there was going to be an announcement about a protest date, and then we since go in for Savio the next day. It's all like, oh, because the news come out with Savio, it's like we acted on the protest. It's like, come on, because I've gone online and said things. I could come and say that Tottenham have been watching my shows because I asked for Savio 3 months ago. We could always just start doing this type of thing, and it just sets a bad precedent amongst fans to think that, we know as fans we have power and they do listen to our voice to an extent. But like I say, it is to an extent. They're not going to listen to us when it comes to transfers. They don't want fans' opinions on which player is good, which isn't. Like when we've seen with, protests against a player signing, for example, Arsenal, Noni Madueke, the team doesn't care about the fans not liking Madueke. You don't have to choose whether you like Madueke or not once he plays on the pitch. It's the manager wanted him, so they're going to get him because the manager wants him. It's not anything to do with the fans.
Are we that caught up in our own lives that we actually think that Daniel Levy or anybody at Tottenham Hotspur, like they might employ someone on like minimum wage who is tasked with like, I'll summarize what the general take on the fan base is via YouTube and Twitter and all that stuff. But do you really think that Daniel Levy has like an hourly meeting every day saying, what's Spurs talk show, Spurs 5, what's what's Durag Diaries? What's the kind of vibe right now? Like, am I popular? Like, what are we doing here?
Yeah.
Like, what are we doing here? They don't give an F about us. They don't. But I'm not saying that in a bad way or a good way. I'm just saying that like we're here to voice our opinions primarily, Jords, right? My opinion, your opinion.
Yeah.
And then the people in the comment sections, and shout out to you all, by the way, you want to chime in on what we're saying and have your own say. And that's the beautiful thing about social media. But to sit there and think that a football club should listen or work to the whims of people who are entirely volatile with their emotions because they're not directly responsible for the outcomes of what happens. It's madness. It's madness.
It is madness. And to be fair, like you said, I'm all for the protest. Like, I'm all for it. I'm all for people having a voice, and I support the fact that we are protesting because ultimately, people want better for our club, and we all do. We all want better for our club. Like I say, I'm one person that I've always gone out there and said I don't ever tell anybody how to support their club. Everybody has their own way of supporting the club, and ultimately, we should all support it in our own ways. But at the same time, there is a point of when we have to make sure the message that we're putting out, especially when you're doing these protests, is one message, and it's a message that's collative from the fans. And I think sometimes with the protest, that has been the problem, is some people have got the Levy out message, and some people are going with that agenda. Some people are going with, oh, I want a better Tottenham, so I don't care whether it's Levy out, just change for Tottenham in that sense. And it's just combining those messages and making sure they all come to one with the right message. And that's where the problem has been with the protest so far for me.
Problem is, though, is that if you listen to the visible faces behind Change for Tottenham, if you go and look at their actual specific narratives, they are Levy out. They might represent anything you want in Change. Change can be anything to you, but the people that are in charge that at least you can have access to, if you go and look at their particular Twitter handles and their particular messages, the people that you know that are actually at the forefront of it, it's lipstick on a pig. They saw that Levy out, the previous incarnation, the previous iteration of Levy out movements, the people that stood the other side of the club shop every week, there's 40 of them. Those people, you know, they would say, if you're not with us, you're against us. You know, they weren't working in the middle ground. So these people are a little bit smarter in as much as saying we're open to everybody, but the actual driving force behind it is the same thing. It's Levy out, Levy out, Levy out.
Same message. Still the same message. But hopefully it goes well, innit? I hope anybody that's attending the protest, it goes well. You guys enjoy the day. It is going to be our first game of the season, and hopefully it's going to be warm outside as well. So it is going to be a pleasant day to enjoy away from that and onwards from that. And talking about the game, obviously, it's quite of a pleasantry game of some sorts, because you've got Scott Parker returning to Tottenham, but not just because he used to play for us, but he actually started his coaching career at Tottenham. You got Marcus Edwards returning to us, who's also a former academy graduate, and then you got Odebert going to the club, which we bought from last season. So some familiar faces all going to be coming together, but we are going up against Burnley team who some will say are favourites to get relegated, but they're definitely up there. They're a team that haven't gone out there in the window and improved too much, but they've got a few players in there where you could say they could be dangerous. Looking at this game, Sean, how are you feeling? Do you think that we got to wipe the floor with them and start off the season well, or is this a tough one?
I don't know, man. I feel like, is his name Pace? I think his name's Mike Pace, the owner at Burnley, who I think he owns ALK Capital, and funnily enough, ALK Capital, who owns another subsidiary called Velocity Sports, and they just bought into Espanyol, I think, right? But there's a hell of a lot of that MCO kind of mischief. Like they come across a little bit like mini Chelsea to me. Well, they signed three or four players from Chelsea this year.
Yeah,
Ugachukwu, Broja. Bashir Humphreys as well, another one, right? Like, I feel like a little bit about this Burnley team looks like they're feeding into the Chelsea kind of ecosystem. Listen, I definitely rate the manager. I definitely think that Scott Parker's done a really good job. I think they're going to be hard to break down. I think it's going to be chalk and cheese to what we have to face, what we faced a couple of nights ago in Italy against PSG. And I hope that Tottenham have got enough to get through that block, because what did they get? Was it 27 clean sheets last year?
Yeah, they were one of the best defensive teams in the league. I think they only conceded something like, it was close to Chelsea's record. 17 goals. It's like that's what I mean. I remember it being close to Mourinho's record. It was really good, strong at the back. And I know we looked at that yesterday as well a few times as well early in the window.
Yeah, look, I think that they've gone after. Is it Zian Fleming? Is it Zian Fleming, the guy from Millwall, who's a bit of a baller at a lower level? And obviously they got the guy Carl Walker, right? They got our old right back. So they mixed in with a bit of experience, some sort of like Chelsea level kind of sort of rejects or whatever you want to call them. And I think there'll be a tough afternoon for Tottenham. I expect us to have a lot of possession, and the fact that we don't have a locksmith. And the fact that we maybe have a really underconfident. I don't know if Matisse Tell will start. I hope he comes on, even if he doesn't start. But I think that if we are going to win, it's going to be a brutally kind of frustrating game for Tottenham. Then we have a lot of possession, but it's going to be like a 1-0 victory, or maybe if we happen to get a goal early, it could be superb. But I'm expecting like a ridiculously tough game to be able to break them down, and then just hope that we don't get transitioned on like we used to under Ange Postecoglou.
Yeah, man, that's always at the back of my mind. Like just that even watching in that game against PSG where we had all the players high up the pitch. I think there was one time where Barcola broke down the left-hand side, and I was getting PTSD instantly. I was like, oh my god, they're flying through. We cannot risk this. Obviously,
just quickly, is Bradley Barcola? Did he make Danso look slow because he's so fast, or was Danso just slow?
No, I think he made him look slow because whenever I saw Danso was covering ground, he just couldn't catch up to Barcola, but he was covering ground pretty quickly still. Or maybe we're just too used to seeing Van de Ven who just outbreezes everyone in the attack. But that Danso looked good. And do you know what? Against this Burnley team, I do expect to see quite a few changes from that lineup we had against PSG. I'd expect that we go with that 4-3-3, more attacking system, trying to take the game to them. They probably will get into a back five. They're probably going to be quite of a low block, and having that experience in the Kyle Walker and so on, they're going to try and lean on that to get them through the game. But the one bit where I'm a little bit concerned for this is our attacking quality. We obviously do have Kudus, but away from Kudus, when I look at the other options, whether it's Richarlison, we start up top, he's a player, especially against a low block, struggles because he's only good in the air. He's not really someone that's going to get on the ball, turn, beat his man and shoot. We have to take advantage of the small opportunities that he does get. So he will probably struggle in this game. So I'm interested to see the different solutions that Frank's going to set up, because we've obviously seen in that last game, he innovated and he went to that back five. But across the season, this is where I'm starting to test how good of a coach is he, because we obviously heard so much. And I've watched Brentford last season and seen some of the things he done, but we never see them get week in, week out. So when you miss that side of things, you probably don't see the little bits of changes that he does with players. And I'd like to see Brennan Johnson. I'd like to see what he gets out of Brennan Johnson and what the view is, because he's obviously a player who's viewed as having a long-term future at Tottenham. I don't think Tottenham are going to look to move him on anytime soon. With the money that we invested in him, with him having a good season last year, he showed his ability to score goals, but there's questions whether to where he's going to play, where he's going to have an impact. He's tried him on the left-hand side so far. Hasn't worked. And like I said, I would like to see potentially Telstar, but I'd say more possibly Odegaard as him being the most comfortable left winger at this moment in time and performing good in pre-season. But what do you think he does with Brennan Johnson? Because some people have suggested playing Brennan Johnson up top, getting in behind and picking up some goals from there. But he's got to work a way for him to be in the team. Really not too sure how he's going to use him. What do you think?
Brennan Johnson, I'll be entirely honest, I wasn't expecting us to go two at the top. I thought even if you go to a back five, I thought it would be like a 3-4-3 sort of thing, as we sort of did it under Conte. I don't expect us to do a back three tomorrow. I don't think it's necessary. I think that I'm not even sure if like Palhinha is necessary as much tomorrow. Yeah. Even though I thought he was so vital against PSG, but you have to manage his minutes until he gets up to full fitness. Yeah. At the top end of the pitch, though, I'd like to see Brennan Johnson get some minutes. Brennan Johnson's like, we still haven't figured out, like none of our problems have been solved. As much as we all think that, there's an Eze or a Savio coming in, it's all too late now for Burnley. And so, but we're still going to have to figure out how do we, at least for the Burnley game, and hopefully not for the Man City game, we're still going to have to figure out how we replace that 67 GA that has disappeared from our squad, from Decky, Maddison, and Sonny. And so if you also don't play Johnson, that's like, I don't know, like verging on 95 GA or something silly, right? Yeah. So I think Johnson has to play. I think he has to play. But he didn't play against PSG, and I don't know if he was injured or tired or if it was just tactical or what, but because we're going back to probably a 4-2-3-1 or something like that, I expect Johnson to play. How we play it, though, I'm curious, because I thought we actually had a lot of value out of having two kind of forward guys that were playing off each other, whereas in a 4-2-3-1 you don't. Like Johnson back on the right or Johnson on the left. If Kudus is on the right, I don't think you're going to see the best out of Johnson in that regard. So maybe they find a way to kind of have a two up top. Maybe it's more of like a traditional 4-4-2. I honestly don't know how we're going to do it, Jords, but. I think that Brennan Johnson has to be a part of that squad tomorrow, that starting 11, because we need goals. And the one thing that from Johnson is that, rightly or wrongly, whether you think he offers more or less in the build-up, he's always there for the output. And given that we're missing Sonny and Decky and Maddison, I think that in a game where you're going to have a lot of possession, you need a guy in the team that's that's more likely to be able to put the ball in the back of the net.
Yeah, definitely need someone that's confident in scoring goals, because as much as we like Kudus and many of us rate him very highly, I think the one thing where he does a bit struggle is that final third ball. We saw it a few times in the last game, struggle to find the cross and just get a proper quality ball into that area. But I think over time, when Frank's working with him, that will improve across the season. But going into this first game, we probably need someone that we can rely upon, someone that's already proven at doing that. And Brennan Johnson may be that choice for us. Potentially seeing Kudus in the 10, I think that could be an option. Like I said, that we don't need Paulinho necessarily in the midfield. I think you can go with Bentancur as Sarr. We've seen that work already this pre-season. So if you go with Kudus in the 10 and then it gives you that option, maybe put Brennan back out on his favoured right-hand side, put Odegaard on the left, and then you've got Richarlison in there. We've also got a lot of ball carriers. It gives you the option that when Kudus is on the ball, those other players can play off of him. So I suppose it's interesting to see how it does play out in that sense. But what is your actual prediction? What score are you going to go with? Let's throw a number on it.
I said 3-0. I said 3-0, and I'm going to stick to it. But I actually, ever since I said it without thinking about it,
the more you think about it, it's like you start to
overthink it. I think it's going to be like, I think it might be a 1-0, like smashing, not a smashing grab. So we're way to say it, but like I think we'll be battering down the hatches. If we get an early goal, I think their floodgates could open. But if we don't, if it's 0-0 at half time, you know what's going to happen. It will go from like the energy in the fan base will go from like early exuberance, like start of the season, we're all back together. How's everyone doing? If it's 0-0 at half time, it's going to be one of those squeaky bum time second halves. But I think we're going to win either way. But I'm not sure, either 1-0 or 3-0. I'm going to say 3-0.
Yeah, I've got 2-0. I had 2-0. I think we're going to keep a clean sheet. Just seeing how we played defensively, our box defending has been so good. I can't see us conceding in that sense. So I don't think they're going to have enough to break us down there. But definitely, I think that we're going to be able to get the job done. I think 2-0 win, comfortable, confident, and just take us into that Man City game with a bit more, positivity to know that we can get something out of it. Going into that game, though, definitely need 1, potentially 2 here we goes, because I need some creativity to go into that game. I don't think last season Kulusevski absolutely ran riot in that game against City. No Kulu, no Madders, the 2 players that were so key in that performance. We're going to need somebody to be that creative outlet. So whether that's Eze, whether that's Savio, we need someone of that quality. But Sean, you're going live at 5. Do you want to tell the people where they can find you and what else you got coming up?
Yeah, appreciate you, mate. Mate, really enjoyed the chat, buddy. But let's do more of them. Football Inc. is where it's the second or third, fourth channel. I'm not sure. I've got 4 channels at the moment. So, but Football Inc. Johnny and I
balancing a lot.
It's just gone crazy. Football Inc. is on at 5 o'clock with Johnny H. And we're talking about, obviously, that's not a Tottenham channel. That's a sort of broadly football channel. We talk about all the transfers, whatever's going on around the world of football. But because we're both Tottenham fans, inevitably sort of at least 25% of the show is about Tottenham. But Football Inc. starts in 24 minutes, mate. Mate, Jords, loved it, man. Invite me on again, buddy, and I'll be here. Loved it.
No, definitely going to do this again. It's been a pleasure. I know some people may not have known, but me and Sean have been doing shows together for a few years now. I know I never had a channel, but I used to jump on in and around and be on shows. So it's good to finally have Sean on my channel once we have been launched, and we'll definitely do this again. People, what I'm going to do is I'm going to send you guys over to Jose El Tel Cockerell himself, who is live doing some week 1 predictions. So you guys can go join over there. Sean's going to be live at 5. So make sure you head over to Sean as well at 5 p.m. But before you head out, make sure you drop a like on the video. We're close to 4K, real close, like 200 away. We've got 250 people in the house. So if all of you are subscribed, then I think we might get there. We might get there. So appreciate if you can subscribe. Also support Sean on his channel, Spurs 5 Football Inc. and Spurs Talk Show. In the comments, in the title, in the description, you can find them. But big up. It's been a good stream. And until next time, we're out.